A few weeks ago, I made a video about just how weird the Baltimore Regional Championships was, with lots of super odd, weird, niche, peculiar Pokemon doing well at the event. And well, towards the end of the video, I said this. Do I think this format is going to stay this weird and wacky the whole time? Probably not. As the format gets older, I gotta admit something here, I was wrong. There are still more and more and more different weird little men popping up in our video game tournaments. So today, let's go over the 4 regionals that have happened since that video, Louisville, Lille, Dortmund, and Joinville, and see how, somehow, this format just keeps getting weirder. Just a quick note, I won't be covering all the weird teams, just those that piqued my interest that made at least day 2. And after that, we'll revisit the Pokemon that I talked about in the first video to see if any of them have continued to be successful. Let's get into it in chronological order. Starting with Joinville Regional, since it and Dortmund were the same weekend, but Joinville was a much smaller event. The only Pokemon I want to talk about from Joinville is the Poliwrath that made top 32. Poliwrath's stats are kind of mid besides its bulk, but fighting types are really valuable in this format because there's so many really strong steals. And a Swift Swim user that can be bulky and hit pretty hard is strong. It's kind of similar to Quaquaval and the Rain teams we talked about in the last video, a Swift Swim user with a positive matchup into King Gambit, which Basket Legion hates. And this guy has the added bonus of being an anti-Dozomon with access to Haze, but really, I don't like Poliwrath. It just doesn't really do that much damage, and I can't figure out a good concrete reason why it's better than the other options. But I really like the Poliwag line, so I'm glad to see it succeed. Next, looking through Dortmund regionals. European VGC players are known for sticking with what they know works, tried and true balance teams, so I'm sure there won't be much to see here, and oh my god, what is that? And Espeon made day 2 in the hands of Omar Ziani. Espeon is a pretty similar Pokemon to the Delphox stuff, fast expanding force user, right? But Espeon is a much better special attack stat and is pretty noticeably faster than Delphox. Usually, Delphox's secondary Fire Stab would be enough to make it better than Espeon despite these stat differences, but since the rest of this team was a rain mode with Pelipper and Basket Legion, Delphox's Fire Stabs would have been way less useful than they would normally be. So, those extra stats on Espeon make the difference. Next, let's talk about a Pokemon I know my friend Doug will be really happy about, Dudunsparce. Hector made day 2 of the regional with a very odd team. A Stamina, a Saltfest Arcalodon with Electro Shot, but no drizzle Pokemon like Pelipper or Politoed, instead relying on a Rain Dance Sableye to set the rain, but who really cares about that? We're here for the frickin' Dudunsparce. So, the Dudunsparce has the ability Rattled, which raises the Dudunsparce's speed whenever it gets hit by a Dark, Bug, or Ghost-type attack, or when it's intimidated. By giving the Dudunsparce a weakness policy in Terra Psychic, these attributes all combo into this crazy Exodia thing. First, you get Mousehold next to the Dudunsparce. Then, you Terra Psychic Dudunsparce as you click Beat Up with Mousehold into it. This sets up 4 Rattled boosts and activates weakness policy, leaving you with the Dudunsparce a +4 speed, +2 special attack, and +2 attack. From here, Dudunsparce clicks a devastatingly strong Stored Power, a Psychic-type move that has its base power increased by 20 for each individual stat boost the Pokemon has, so in this case, 8 stat boosts. This team was apparently the brainchild of Poliwrath, and I'm not surprised it took a world champion to come up with something that sounds this crazy. But you know what? I actually don't think this Dudunsparce team was the craziest one from Dortmund. To see that, we have to look at the top 8 of the regional for something genuinely beautiful. But before we move on to Germany, I want to take you to another dimension with the sponsor of today's video. It's one I'm genuinely excited about. Dimensionals. Dimensionals is a cool new take on the roguelike genre, and it's coming out this November. The game has a really cool art style, kind of like a mashup between an old Saturday morning cartoon and a comic book, and they bring it all to life with voice-acted cutscenes.
We make a pretty awesome team too, huh, Boop? Oh yeah!
In Dimensionals, you hop from dimension to dimension to defeat the specters unleashed upon them by the devious Ragnaroth. Collect various Dimensionals, heroes from these various dimensions, like my favorite, Shork, and combine them into squads of 3 to unleash devastating tactical combos to defeat your enemies and save the various dimensions. Genuinely, I had never heard of this game before they reached out to me, and I am really impressed with their demo and the various voice-acted trailers and sneak peeks that I got to take a look at. They told me I could do this ad literally however I want, and I'm using it to tell you that I personally will be playing this full game in my free time when it releases. So, use the link in the description or the pinned comment and add Dimensionals to your Steam wishlist today. Now, back to the video. This video is formatted to generally be looking at individual weird guys, but that doesn't really work for Jack's team. I mean, look at it. Drifblim Toxtricity and Life Orb, 3 attack, Volcarona. This team looks like utter nonsense, but in fact, it is the opposite of nonsense. It is non-nonsense. Drifblim is a super strong support. With its ability Unburden, it gets fast when it loses its item. So by giving the Psychic Seed to hold and pairing it with a Psychic Terrain setting in DD Mail, Jack Clark was able to guarantee that he always has speed control with a super fast Tailwind and could stymie his opponent's physical attackers with moves like Will-O-Wisp and Strength Sap. Toxtricity resists a lot of the common Pokemon with its electric and poison typing, and with its ability Punk Rock, it takes half the damage from sound-based moves. These two traits made Toxtricity basically a one-mon answer to Primarina, Rillaboom, and Sneasler, unless the Rillaboom has a ground move, but that wasn't super common until after this top cut. Plus, Punk Rock also boosts the damage of Toxtricity's sound moves, which it has two of, Overdrive and Boom Burst, letting this guy do an absurd amount of damage when it's combined with choice specs. Now, as for the Volcarona, I'm not really sure why the Volcarona was 3-attack Life Orb. I guess he wanted immediate damage with his Volcarona, so we gave it the damage-boosting item, but then realized with the damage it'll take from the Life Orb, it might not be worthwhile to try to set up with Quiver Dance. So you end up with his 3 attacks Protect Life Orb. That wraps up Dortmund. So now, we're gonna hop into the only one of these events I played myself, Louisville. Am I a part of this list? No. My team was probably the most boring-looking pile of stat-stick Pokemon I've ever played, but you can still read about my tournament run on my Patreon with the tournament report live right now. Anyway, I've got 4 teams from Louisville for you to go through. First off, Stefan Mott brought Boo Boo Keys, Klefki. Usually the best prankster screen setter is Grimmsnarl, but Klefki has a lot of the same moves, and Grimmsnarl is pretty bad against Sneasler, where Klefki has a really good type matchup. And with the attack Misty Terrain to set, well, Misty Terrain, it helps its partners be safe from Sneasler's random status moves too. Stefan used this screen setter in conjunction with Sinistra's Healing and Mousehold's Friend Guard to turn Arcaludon and Annihilate into absolute raid bosses. It's kind of crazy that 2 really good metagame threats love the move beat up. And this led him top 32 the regional and beat Wolf on stream. Next, let's talk about my favorite Pokemon, Charizard. Several players, including Luke Bauer, brought Choice Scarf Charizard as a fast mode on what is otherwise a hard Trick Room team. Essentially, Charizard's ability, Solar Power, increases Charizard's special attack by 1.5 times while it's in the sun, at the cost of 1/8 of its HP at the end of each turn. By combining this with its natural stab boost on Fire-type attacks, and the sun's Fire-type damage boost, and Terra Fire, suddenly you are doing so much damage and you're moving so fast. This kind of gives me flashbacks to G-Max Charizard and Sword and Shield on Groudon teams, so I hate it. But it was a really smart way to innovate on how to do a sun mode on one of these hard Trick Room teams. Now, we gotta talk about Yanmega. Wolf Click brought this silly little bug all the way to the top 8 of the tournament on what was otherwise a team full of really standard looking Pokemon. The logic behind Yanmega on this team was basically that Wolf wanted to operate more as a tail room team. Basically a team that goes super fast or super slow depending on the situation, rather than as a balancey team with a Trick Room option, the way other Porygon 2 Ursaluna teams in the format have operated so far. But why Yanmega? Well, it's super fast with speed boost, outspeeding other fast Pokemon and even Choice Scarfers after a boost or two, and has a relatively strong special attack stat and good typing into Sneasler. What else can you ask for? It was a shockingly good metagame call, but I don't think we'll see this team again though, because it has a really hard time into the screen stuff like we saw Pengy play on stream, and frankly I think the screen stuff is going to get more and more popular. Finally, the most exciting team from Louisville, this Exeggutor team. Parker Simmons took a really interesting spin on Psyspam, basically fusing the fast Chlorophyll mon you see on these teams a lot, like Lilligant, and has Trick Room Expanding Force user like Armarouge or Hatterene and turn them into the same Pokemon, Exeggutor. With Exeggutor trained to hit 107 speed, it was slow enough to still abuse Trick Room, but if the sun was up, its ability Chlorophyll would double its speed and it would just be fast enough to outspeed the most common fast Pokemon in the format, Jolly Dragapult. This let Parker be super flexible. If he led Indeedee Exeggutor, he could go for a classic follow-bait Trick Room, or he could swap in Torkoal right away and go for a devastatingly strong, blisteringly fast Expanding Force. And that's all assuming the Exeggutor is what's actually on the field, because sometimes it might be his Hisuian Zoroark in disguise. It could all be a ruse. This team is something that I frankly thought we'd never see again because it looked pretty weak into Incineroar, but it also taught me to the Lille Regional Championships, so apparently it's here to stay. Speaking of Lille, there's 2 teams from there I want to discuss. First, Alberto Bali's Slaking Weezing team. Neutralizing gas to remove negative abilities like Mycelia Might or Slacking Struant aren't anything new, but up until this format, it's been kind of a meme in Scarlet and Violet, not something you really want to consider. But, I mean, look at Slacking's stats. Now, compared to some of the best Pokemon in the format, Garchomp, Sneasler, Goldengo, Slacking's stats are overall better than all these Pokemon. So, when you're getting a bunch of disruptive value out of your Weezing, having such a good stat stick next to it is really valuable. When there's no abilities around, the bigger number is gonna win. Alberto's team also had some other cool stuff like Stalwart Arcaludon and Dual Wing Beat Talonflame. And this last one kinda had me scratching my head. It's Lorenzo's Swords Dance Gliscor. Lorenzo put this Mon as the last piece of his Dragapult Sneasler balance team. With Gliscor's ability, Poison Heal, it heals 1/8 of its max HP at the end of each turn if it's poisoned instead of taking poison damage. And with this Gliscor holding the Toxic Orb item, that was a pretty easy task. Once it was poisoned, its flying ground typing lets it resist both of Sneasler's stabs, which is super nice, and keeps it safe from Dire Claw status procs. Plus, with the extra recovery and Gliscor's great defense and respectable HP and special defense, Gliscor could set up and pretty easily win damage trades with Pokemon that are otherwise hitting it neutrally, like Garchomp or Kingambit. If you don't knock this thing out, it gets the Toxic Orb heal, and then protects, that's 25% of its health back. That's crazy. All in all, just another really cool team with a really cool application. But you may be saying, Scraw, it seems like there's less and less new stuff for you to cover with each event. You only covered 2 Lille teams, and that is true, but it doesn't mean the format's getting stagnant. If we zoom out, you'll see a lot of the other Pokemon we covered in this video and the last one are proving to be top competitive successes. Down the line real quick, there's an Exeggutor and Hisuian Samurott in top 8, Jumpluff and Vivillon in top 16, Charizard in top 32, Delphox, Flamigo, and Blaziken in top 64. I could keep going. The weird Pokemon aren't going away. The format is staying weird, and I think that's beautiful. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. Bye.